The battlefield was silent. Smoke curled into the sky with the scent of blood thick in the air. A lone warrior queen, dressed in armor, stood atop a hill, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her army, 1,000 strong, stood behind her, battle-worn but unshaken. Underestimated by her enemies, but with her command, a thunderous roar erupted from her warriors, shaking the ground beneath them. This battle was for survival, for legacy, for the future of her people. This is the story of African legendary warrior queens, women who defied expectations, commanded armies and ruled vast empires with an iron fist. Before we dive into the lives of these fierce rulers, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because trust me, you don't want to miss a single tale of power, betrayal and war. Now let's begin. Queen Moremi of Ile-Ife, 12th century. Moremi hailed from Offa in the present-day Kwara state of Nigeria. She was married to Oramiya, son of the great Oduduwa and founding father of the Yoruba people. A time came in the land of Ile-Ife, the heart of the Yoruba civilization. A dark cloud loomed. Ruthless warriors known as the Bush people raided the kingdom, taking captives and burning villages. Moremi, a queen of remarkable beauty and intelligence, could not stand by as her people suffered. She devised a daring plan by the help of the spirit of a simmering river, one that required her to sacrifice everything. She allowed herself to be captured by the enemy, earning the favor of their leader, who made her his queen. But Moremi was not there to rule. She was there to spy. She learned their secrets, their weaknesses, and when the time was right, she escaped, returning to Ile-Ife with the knowledge that would bring the Bush people to their knees. Her plan worked. The warriors of Ile-Ife, armed with their new knowledge, crushed the enemy in battle, but victory came at a price. Moremi had promised a great sacrifice to the spirits in exchange for their help. When the time came to fulfill her vow, the spirits demanded her only son, Onuorobo. Heartbroken, she obeyed, proving that true leadership often requires painful sacrifices. Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, 1583 to 1663. Picture this: a Portuguese governor sits in his grand hall, waiting to meet with the ambassador of Ndongo. He expects submission and obedience. Instead, a woman enters, tall, proud, with piercing eyes that could cut through stone. She refuses to sit on the floor as expected. Instead, she signals her servant, who kneels down, to become her throne. This was Queen Nzinga, the woman who would challenge European colonization itself. Nzinga ruled Ambundu kingdoms of Ndongo, 1624 to 1663, and Matamba, 1631 to 1663, in present-day Angola. Her grandfather, Angola Kilombo, was the king of Ndongo. She received military and political training as a child and demonstrated great aptitude for diffusing political crises as ambassador of Ndongo to the Portuguese Empire. She took over the throne of Ndongo in 1624 when her brother Mbandi died. The Portuguese declared war on Ndongo in 1626 because Nzinga resisted Portuguese slave trade within her territory and strived for equal treatment from the Portuguese, who always treated them as inferior race. Queen Nzinga held her ground and fought with the Portuguese for 30 years until a treaty was signed in 1656. While in search of allies during the war, she ended up marrying Kasanje, the Mbangala warlord. Together, they captured the kingdom of Matamba in 1631. In October of 1663, Nzinga fell ill from throat infection. She died in the morning of December 17, 1663, and was succeeded by her younger sister. Queen Amina of Zauzau, 1533 to 1610. Resharpen your blades. That was the first command Queen Amina gave after ascending the throne of Zauzau. Amina was born to King Nikatal, the 22nd ruler of Zauzau, one of the 7 pre-colonial states of northern Nigeria. She grew up in the court of her grandfather, who instructed her in politics and military tactics. At the age of 16, Amina was named Magajia, heir apparent, and was immediately assigned 40 female slaves. Her brother became king of Zauzau in 1566 after the death of her parents. He died in 1576 and Amina succeeded him as the 24th ruler of Zauzau. Immediately after ascending the throne, Amina sent one message to her 20,000 foot soldiers and 1,000 horsemen: resharpen your blade. 3 months into her reign as queen, she began a 34-year military campaign against her neighbors, targeting expansion of Zauzau. With her well-trained soldiers, Queen Amina conquered territories down south to Nupe and close to Ida in present-day Kogi state. Queen Amina established trade routes linking northern Africa. She constructed walls to fortify towns under her territories and introduced the planting of kola nuts in her territory. But Amina had one dark secret: she never kept a lover alive. She took a new lover in every town she went through. The same fate met each and every one of them. Each man was beheaded the next morning. Why? Because no man could be trusted with the secrets of a warrior queen. Queen Amina died at the age of 77 in 1610. There is no record of the cause of her death. She was succeeded by her sister Zaria. And speaking of fearless women who defied colonial forces, we cannot ignore the firebrand who stood against the British Empire. Queen Yaa Asantewaa of Ashanti Empire, 1840 to 1921. The British thought they had seen the last of the Ashanti resistance. They were wrong. Yaa Asantewaa was appointed the Queen Mother of Ejisu in the Ashanti Empire in modern-day Ghana, a prominent position responsible for protecting the golden stool, advising the king of Ashanti, and choosing candidates for the throne. When her brother died in 1894, Asantewaa used her position as the Queen Mother to nominate her own grandson to replace her brother as Ejisu Hene. When the British exiled her grandson and King Prempe I of Ashanti Kingdom, Asantewaa became the regent of Ejisu Jiaben district. The then British Governor General of Gold Coast, Frederick Hudson, demanded for the golden stool, which symbolizes the Ashanti royalty and the Ashanti nation as a whole. In a meeting held in Kumasi to discuss how to respond to the British demand, Yaa Asantewaa, who was not pleased with the cowardice displayed by the Ashanti chiefs, snatched a gun and fired it before everyone, then said, "The golden stool only meant money to the white man. I shall not pay one bread one to the governor. If you, the chiefs of Ashanti, are going to behave like cowards and not fight, you should exchange your loincloths for my undergarments." Asantewaa led an army of 5,000 people to war against the British. The war lasted for 6 months. She lost 2,000 soldiers and the British lost 1,000 men. In late 1901, Yaa Asantewaa and her closest advisors were captured by the British and exiled to Seychelles, where she lived till her death in 17 October 1921. And just before Asantewaa was another queen who rose against the British and the French. Queen Rana Valona I of Madagascar, 1778 to 1861. They called her the Mad Monarch of Madagascar, but to our people, she was their protector. Queen Ramavo or Rana Valona reigned over the Kingdom of Madagascar for 33 years, from 1828 to 1861, when she died at the good old age of 83. There was a huge British and French interest in the Kingdom of Madagascar. The British needed the island as a passage to India. The European countries also needed the island for exploration and exploitation of natural resources and slave trading. After the death of her husband, Radama I, Rana Valona ascended the throne as the first queen of the kingdom. She had a standing army of 20,000 and 30,000 Merina soldiers, whom she deployed to subdue more territories on the island. Queen Rana Valona cancelled all bilateral agreements entered by her husband with the Europeans, She adopted isolationism. She even abolished the practice of Christianity among her people. But she, however, allowed the missionaries to practice their religion. But a great punishment awaited her own people who were caught practicing Christianity. Due to these policies, the Europeans called her a tyrant and often referred to her as the Mad Monarch of Madagascar. Rana Valona died peacefully in her sleep on 16 August 1861. 12,000 hornback cattle were slaughtered and distributed among her people for her burial. She was officially mourned for 9 months and was succeeded by her son, Prince Rakoto, who took the name Radamatu. Many decades before the revered Rana Valona fought off European invaders, there lived another queen in the north who enshrined herself as one of Egypt's greatest rulers. Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt, 1505 to 1458 BC. A woman ruling Egypt unheard of, but Hatshepsut did not care for rules. She declared herself pharaoh, even wearing false beard to cement her authority. Hatshepsut was born to Pharaoh Thutmose I of Egypt after the death of her father when she was about 14 years of age. She was married to her stepbrother, who was about her age and who also became Pharaoh Thutmose II, succeeding their father as the next pharaoh in the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Thutmose II died and was succeeded by his 2-year-old son from another wife. He became Pharaoh Thutmose III. Hatshepsut was appointed as a regent for the 2-year-old Thutmose III. At the 7th year of his reign, Hatshepsut, who had been performing the duties of pharaoh on behalf of the young pharaoh, assumed the position of pharaoh alongside her stepson. The 14 years of her reign as pharaoh was a period of peace and prosperity in Egypt, although it was suspected that she led military campaigns to Nubia and Canaan. She re-established trade routes. She commissioned hundreds of construction projects throughout Egypt, and most of the projects included construction of temples in which she performed religious rituals that was further performed by succeeding pharaohs. Hatshepsut, who portrayed herself as a male dressed like a male, wore false beard, died in 1458 BC at about 40 years of age. Thutmose III continued his reign as pharaoh and was later succeeded by his son, Amenhotep II. Queen Kandake Amanirenas of Kush, late 1st century BCE to early 1st century CE. The Roman Empire, unstoppable, ruthless, devouring lands from Europe to Africa. When they set their sights on Kush, they expected an easy conquest. They didn't expect Queen Amanirenas. With one eye gouged out in battle, the warrior queen led fierce resistance against Rome's greatest general in the region, Gaius Petronius. Amanirenas ascended to the throne of the kingdom of Kush after the death of her husband, Teritekase, in late 25 BC, 5 years into Roman occupation of the Lower Nubia. The Kush kingdom had profited from trading their gold and other riches with Egypt during the reign of Cleopatra of Egypt. This changed when the Roman forces under Augustus Caesar seized control of Egypt from Cleopatra. The Romans encroached into the fertile land in Lower Egypt belonging to the Nubia. Then they imposed high taxes on the people of Meru, the capital of Kush. On assuming the throne, Amanirenas had about 30,000 Kush soldiers under her command, so she was moved to do what the men could not do. While most of the Roman soldiers in Egypt had gone to war in Arabia, Amanirenas invaded the Roman cities of Aswan, Philae, and Elephantine. They plundered the cities and enslaved the Romans. This sparked a 4-year war from 25 BC to 21 BC. The Romans, due to superior weapons, dominated the war. They pushed hard on the Kushites. Queen Amanirenas even lost an eye to combat against the Romans, yet did not surrender until a peace treaty was reached between the Kush kingdom and the Roman Empire. Meru gained her sovereignty from Rome, and heavy taxes were withdrawn. But Amanirenas wasn't the only African queen to stand against invaders. Down south, another queen was rising. one whose wisdom and power will make her legendary. Queen Nzinga of the Tlokwa, 1784 to 1836. Nzinga was a strong, brave and capable leader both in times of peace and war. She was the daughter of Motaha, a chief of the Basia tribe in South Africa. Growing up, she was beautiful, intelligent and had good manners. At a very young age, she was married to her cousin Mokojo, who was the chief of Batlokwa. Their union was more of a strategic alliance between the two chiefdoms. Mokojo, her husband, died at a very young age of 27. His son, Sekonyela, who succeeded him, was just 9 years old. So Nzinga became regent to Sekonyela. Sehala, who was half-brother to Mokojo, opposed the leadership of Nzinga owing to the fact that she was from Basia, not Batlokwa. However, due to the culture of levirate marriage, she became married to Sehala, her brother-in-law, and had another son with him. Due to the rise and expansion of Zulu Kingdom, she decided to move her tribe westward in 1817. This started a series of unrest for Batlokwa people, whom she led into several wars and came out victorious. She conquered about 28 tribes in Southern Africa, killed those who resisted and adopted those who were willing into her tribe. She built a community of over 40,000 people and was greatly feared by her neighbors. In 1824, when Nzinga felt that Sekonyela, her son, had reached maturity, she retired as a chief of Batlokwa and her son took over as a sole ruler. 12 years later, in 1836, she died and was laid to rest. While Nzinga ruled with terror, there lived another queen, a woman whose very name sent shivers down the spines of warriors. Queen Tetu Betu of Ethiopia, 1851 to 1918. Tetu was born to the family of Ras Betu, who was part of the ruling family of Semien in the Ethiopian Empire in 1851. In her fourth and final marriage, she got married to King Menelik of Shiwa, who later became the Emperor of Ethiopia. Tetu had been known to wield a level of political influence as a member of the ruling family, so it was easy for her to adapt when she and her husband were crowned Emperor and Empress of Ethiopia in 1889. During her days, it was rare for women to be educated, but Tetu learned how to read and write Amharic and Ge'ez. Then she learned diplomacy, politics and economics. She was always consulted by the Emperor before taking critical decisions. Menelik, who always postponed taking firm and unpleasant decisions, found it convenient to let his wife, Empress Tetu, to take the hard decisions on his behalf. Empress Tetu Betu was a key player in the conflict over the Treaty of Uchale with Italy. The treaty gave Italy control over part of Ethiopia. She was deeply suspicious of the Europeans' intention to make Ethiopia a protectorate of Italy. She tore the treaty and motivated the emperor and other men to stand against the Italians. This singular act made Ethiopia the only country that was not colonized in Africa. Italy invaded Ethiopia when talks broke down. Empress Tetu marched north with the emperor and imperial army to the historic Battle of Adwa that resulted in a humiliating defeat of Italy in March 1896. It was the most resounding victory of all the wars fought against colonialism. Ethiopia took 4,000 prisoners of war. Emperor Menelik fell ill in 1906 and died in 1913. He was succeeded by Lil Iyasu, his grandson from another wife. Tetu was removed from the throne and sent to live in an old palace in Entutu, close to Addis Ababa, where she died in about January 1918. And speaking of warrior queens, our final ruler didn't just lead armies. She became the very symbol of her people's independence. Queen Poko of Baule, 1730 to 1770. Abla Poko was born a princess of Kumasi in present-day Ghana to her father, Nyako Okosiamua. Her uncle, O.C. Kofi Tutu I, was a co-founder and formidable king of the Ashanti Empire. When her uncle died, There was a succession battle that led to the killing of her brother, Dakon. Ablapoko led some group of people who refused to join the Ashanti Empire. They fought and fled, migrating westward from the present-day Ghana to the present-day Ivory Coast. It was a long, rigorous journey that led them to the Como River. There was no means of crossing the stormy river, so Poko asked her priest what to do. The priest who communicated with the river god told her they have to give a sacrifice. Several valuables were offered, but the river god rejected them, insisting on a noble child. Poko sacrificed her infant son by throwing him into the river. The stormy river settled. Hippopotami lined up from one end of the river to the other side, forming a bridge for them to cross to the other side. On reaching the other side of the river, Poko cried out in agony, "Baole," meaning the child is dead. It was from this cry that the tribe became known as Baole. Ablapoko was then crowned Queen of Baole people, and their tribe became one of the first settlers in present-day Ivory Coast. She died in 1770 at the age of 40 and was succeeded by her niece, Akwaboni. These queens were more than just rulers. They were warriors, strategists, and legends who shaped the course of history. Their stories are not just African history, but world history. So which of these queens impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to hear more about the greatest warriors, kings, and empires of Africa, hit that subscribe button.